Hello and welcome to HealthTech Hour on UK Health Radio. My name is Steve Roest, and each week we bring you the best news, views, and interviews with the leaders, founders, and clinicians who are driving the health tech revolution in the UK and beyond. I am a CEO and founder of a health tech company myself, and I'm passionate about the people and companies who are changing the world. Before we start, as always, every week, I'd like to remind you to follow the show, which is at HealthTech Hour on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and also follow at UK Health Radio to stay on top of all of the great content that's coming up on the station. So on to today's guest, and I'm extremely excited to have another NHS Digital Accelerator alumni on the show. So PocDoc and this company are on the same accelerator. And it's an absolute cracker. I love the company. I love what they're doing. The company is called Phlo, which is PHLO. And it's a digital pharmacy, and the chief commercial officer called Adam Hunter, who's with us now. So Phlo are basically or effectively the Deliveroo of the pharmacy world, which means that they're the first same-day delivery service for prescriptions in the UK. And what that means is that you can get your prescriptions filled within hours on the same day and delivered to your door, which is kind of an unbelievable service. So we're going to get into the details of how they can actually do that when we speak to Adam. So Phlo are a Scottish startup success story, and Adam is the man who is heading up their expansion across the UK. So Adam, how are you?
Hi, Steve. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very well, thank you.
Good. How are things where you are? Where exactly are you?
So I'm based in Edinburgh at the moment. So it's been rather chilly over the past few days, but it's starting to calm down now. And yeah, like everyone in the world right now, we moved to predominantly remote working this time last year. So our team members are all over the UK, and then obviously our pharmacy team is very much based in London in our pharmacy operations.
Okay, so you're basically nationwide at this point.
Yeah, I think so. I think for the staff members are Luton to Orkney at the moment. So
oh wow,
we're definitely embracing the the remote working capabilities at the moment.
Orkney is not an easy commute to. Well,
no, it's good, but it's good for at this time for workers to be able to go and go back maybe to their family homes and things like that, and still be able to maintain the service levels is great.
Good. And how was the kind of mood in the camp, moving from a company where everyone was sort of together in various places to now not being together? What's the kind of mood like?
Yeah, I think it's very positive. I mean, everyone who works at Phlo is very much dedicated to providing a world-class pharmacy service to our patients. So that really is what drives everybody on a daily basis within Phlo, is to make sure that we're doing things across all sides of our business to make sure that our patients get the medication when and where they need them. But we've had a lot of changes. Beginning of last year, we were about 14 people. We're now close to 40. So there's actually a lot of staff members that we've onboarded over the past sort of 12 months that I've actually never met. And sort of face to face and press to flesh. So I think that's an interesting challenge. It makes recruitment slightly slower. You need to be a little bit more in depth in it. I also think too, from a sort of culture point of view, it's making sure you've got that transparency within the organization. So we've always been quite good at making sure everybody can get involved in different parts of the business and be aware of what other areas of the business are doing, the impact that might have on engineering or design or marketing or pharmacy or operations. So I think just having those regular contacts, it's worked actually really well for us. But I think everybody is keen to be back to some sort of normality where we can actually see each other in the face, because I think you miss that sort of off the cuff innovation or collaboration amongst colleagues, which I think is hard to, or cannot be replicated in a remote working environment. But I think it's harder to have those natural conversations and relationship building, which is so important at any stage of a company's life cycle.
No, I would agree, and we've been in the same situation where we've hired people because we've expanded during COVID, not in the same way that you have, but as a similar sort of, our services became more valuable during the crisis, and it's hard. It's strange to be hiring people that you've never met. That's a strange one. It's a first one for me. So be interesting to see how you've kind of handled that. So the show is in 3 parts. So the first part is a kind of an origins part where we get into a little bit about how you came to be doing what you're doing. Then we're going to go into Phlo and all of the incredible things that you and Phlo are doing right now, which is, I mean, revolutionizing the delivery of pharmacy services in the UK at the moment. And then the final bit is really about what the future is like for Phlo, and in general, we can kick around some topics of the day, you know, potentially connected to COVID, potentially not connected to COVID. We have to just see whether we can avoid the elephant in the room. So by background, you are a corporate lawyer, is that right?
Sure, yeah. I like to call myself a recovering lawyer, but
A recovering lawyer.
yeah, never quite leaves you. But yeah, I started my career for what it's worth in a corporate law firm in Scotland, which was an international law firm by scale. And yeah, that was great. I really enjoyed it, but it became quite clear to me that I was more interested in the business side of things and actually executing on ideas and dealing with tangible products and offerings. So after a few years in law, I decided that I needed to do something quite drastic to get out of the legal sector and see if there was opportunities for me to work in the business community.
So what, out of interest, you said that, you know, being a corporate lawyer never quite leaves you. What has remained? What can't you get rid of?
Well, I mean, it depends on who you talk to, but I think for me, it's, you know, there's a lot of transferable skills you get as a lawyer. I think your ability to spin multiple plates, your attention to detail, your analytical skills. So, you know, looking at, you know, a problem and seeing it from different angles. I think ability to communicate as well as a lawyer is a very important skill. You know, kind of breaking down quite complicated legal processes and legislation, and then conveying that in a simple and effective way.
Yeah.
So I think those skills are really important. And one of the things I did get as a lawyer was that I worked with a whole range of companies from you know, kind of family-owned businesses to sole traders to startups, all the way to, you know, global PLCs. So it was interesting to be in the room in some of those environments and see how businesses dealt with different challenges and how they approached opportunities. So I really enjoyed it, but I felt that, you know, you end up working for a long time, and I decided that if I was going to make a break away from law, I should do it earlier on in my career rather than later. And, you know, I haven't looked back since I've done that.
And did you, when you were working with that range of companies, were you particularly attracted to the smaller ones, or was it not you that this kind of startup seed hadn't quite been planted yet, but you knew you didn't necessarily want to crack on with the legal career?
Well, the startup piece was always interesting to me because I've always been interested in people or companies that want to do something different and move the needle and try and change the way that either a society is run or the way that a certain business is operated in. And I've always thought the most expensive words in business are "we've always done it this way." and I've always loved any business, regardless of the sector, that goes, no, there is a different way of doing this. Let's go and do something else. So for me, it was always the startups that were the most interesting. But then on the flip side, the larger companies, they had, you know, different types of problems or challenges and opportunities. So you could see the kind of the thinking behind it, and being inside in some of those deals was quite interesting, which also became quite public as well. So you kind of knew the inside track on a few things, which is always interesting.
Right. And so your after your legal career, your kind of your journey, if you like, with Phlo sort of, I think, basically started on a scholarship that you got to the US. Is that kind of, you know, it was sort of like a very early meeting between you and the founder, or what happened with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd had this sort of corporate law background, but I needed a sort of bridge between that and working in a business. So I was lucky enough to be selected to go on the Saltire Foundation Fellowship Program, which is an executive MBA leadership course ran by an organization in Scotland called Entrepreneurial Scotland.
Okay.
And back in 2014, we did an accelerated entrepreneur thought and leadership course at Babson College in the US near Boston, which is one of the top business schools in the world. And during that course, I was very lucky to meet Nadeem Sarwar, who is the founder and CEO of Phlo Digital Pharmacy. And we became very good friends on the program. You're all living together on top of each other for an intense period of time. So
how long are you out there for?
So we were out there for 4 months.
Oh, wow. Like a proper stretch.
Yeah, proper stretch, Monday to Sunday classes. It was nonstop. got to meet some incredible companies, got to some incredible lecturers that had been there and done that, and now working in academia, which was very different from the way that it's set up in the UK. We met people, for example, one of our sales lecturers was involved with he was head of the Fenway Sports Group, who bought Liverpool Football Club, and he'd been involved in that deal. So you got to meet that type of caliber of person, the kind of people who'd been there and done it, but also get to engage with the local Boston ecosystem, which is actually one of the kind of the seeds of Phlo. So Nadeem and I and the rest of the cohort went to this design thinking agency called IDEO.
Okay.
And it was at that point we came across a American online pharmacy called PillPack, which at that point was quite early stage in its life cycle. It recently bought for a number of billions by Amazon a couple of years ago, but they were on the beginning of their journey. And it was really, that was the sort of the light bulb moment for Nadeem in terms of looking at the way that other countries were addressing the same pain points that he experienced as a prescription patient. He saw a different way of doing it in the States, and credit to him, decided, well, you know what, if we can do it in the States and it works there, then something has to work in the United Kingdom. I just need to work out what that is. And that was his kind of journey through that program. I was slightly different. When I came back to Scotland, ended up working in the drinks industry and working for a disruptor in that sector, and growing them to an international drinks company was a real success of mine. But I'd always kind of had a kind of hand in Phlo via my friendship with Nadeem, and he would tell me the highs and lows about what was going on. And eventually, he asked me if I was interested in coming to help get this thing launched and do what he'd set out to do, which was great.
Cool. And so the Saltire, the Entrepreneur Scotland or Entrepreneurial Scotland, is that something that anyone can apply for if they're based in Scotland, or how does that?
Yeah, it's not. You don't have to be Scottish. You have to be living in Scotland. Is a kind of the main requisite, and the whole idea is sort of identify future business leaders of Scotland and give them an international perspective with international networks to then come back to Scotland and help grow the Scottish economy by either working as entrepreneur yourself, so founder and starting your own company, or working within existing companies to help them scale and drive economic growth in Scotland. And it's a fantastic program that I've been fortunate enough to be involved in with a number of years, and I've met a lot of people on that. And obviously the whole Phlo story wouldn't have happened if I hadn't met Nadeem in Boston.
It's like a love story, kind of.
It's a sort of definitely has the ups and downs of a love story. But yeah, absolutely.
So when you were on this course and you met Nadeem, so I'm always really interested in sort of like, how would the movie play out, right? When you guys have grown Phlo to this huge company and you've done whatever you're going to do with it, and they write the movie, was it really a light bulb moment, or was it more of a slow burn and it sort of they kept on coming back to it, or like how much of an epiphany was it? Like, oh my goodness, we could really do something with this in the UK, versus okay, that's kind of interesting, and it sort of drifts a bit and then you come back to it, and like, how did it sort of play out?
Well, I think it was a combination of factors. I think the whole purpose of the program at Babson is to kind of strip down your way of thinking and rebuild it up again to have this sort of idea of entrepreneurial thought and action. So being able to look at sectors and areas and going, where are the pain points? Can I do something that can address those pain points? And then if you do have something that addresses those pain points, is there a big enough market to then scale that company up to a size where you would be happy with your revenues, etc. So that's kind of the overall purpose of the program, is to really change the way you think about business and opportunities in the wider ecosystem. So that's happening on in the background, and we're doing that every single day, and we're all living in a kind of Big Brother style house, so it's very kind of immersive in that. I think for Nadeem, I think it was very much a light bulb moment, because he was a regular repeat prescription user back in the UK. His career before moving into Phlo was working in banking, and one of his challenges was always finding the time to be able to go to the pharmacy, waiting in the queues, maybe have stock, maybe don't. They're not always open when he's got free time to actually go and spend that at a pharmacy. So that was always a pain point for him. And I think the light bulb moment really for Nadeem was actually seeing something where a company had put amazing technology, amazing design, and looking at the patient journey and really putting that at the center of everything we've done. So I think for Nadeem, it was very much a light bulb moment, but that wasn't necessarily what Phlo is today. I think it started the purpose of, okay, the pharmacy sector in the UK has the same pain points as a patient. I mean, obviously the American and British healthcare systems are very different, but the patient experience in terms of accessing your medication is quite similar. You have to go to a pharmacy, you have to wait in the queue, you have to then pick it up, and everything else on top of that. So those pain points were similar. So from Nadeem's perspective, like, well, surely there's something here we can do. His previous role in banking, he'd been involved in funding of pharmacy chains, so had a bit of an understanding of the business model. And fair play to him, came back to Scotland and decided that he was going to go and try and do something similar to PillPack.
And what was PillPack at the time? And what was that?
Well, PillPack's an online pharmacy. It delivers medication to your door. I suppose their defining feature is that for people on multiple medications, they'll split them out into these packets. So, Monday AM, Monday PM, Tuesday AM, Wednesday.
Okay, so they'll sort out the dispensing.
Yeah, all dispensing sorted out. And then it's more for that elderly patient group where, they can just rip open this plastic bag rather than, I always remember my grandparents with those, Monday to Sunday boxes and
and they would put them all in the little.
That always leads to chaos and potential, wrong pills going on wrong days, etc. So that was the concept of it, but it was beautifully designed. It wasn't healthcare in the way that it was actually more like a direct consumer business, where it was about, okay, let's make this as easy as possible for you to order your medication and get it when you want it, and in a way that's convenient to you. So for that older demographic, being able to rip open the packets, etc., is obviously a big selling point for them. And the idea was effectively at first was to kind of bring back a similar model to the United Kingdom, next day delivery, 48-hour delivery across the UK. But to Nadeem's credit, when he was working out the business and looking at it, he saw that actually at the time that he was getting this off the ground, the online pharmacy market amounted to about 0.5% of the total value of the amounts of people using pharmacy services in the UK. So only 0.5% of patients were using that online pharmacy mechanism to get their medication. So like any good business, before you launch something, you need to talk to your potential customers or patients to see what they want from an online pharmacy service. And what came out from our research was it was very clear that people did have frustrations around going to the pharmacy and waiting in queues, and it didn't really fit their way of life.
I would imagine that's kind of probably universal, give or take, right? I mean, I don't know how I've not researched different pharmacy things in different countries, but I suspect people don't generally like standing in queues. People generally don't, like taking time out of their day to do things like that. And it's pretty inconvenient if you go all the way down there and they don't have what you need.
Yeah. And that is, and it kind of fits into a wider society change where we're now living in this sort of on-demand world where, humans want convenience, they want choice, and they want that the rapid delivery of their services. So that to me is the really important thing with Phlo, was going, okay, they do want technological solutions. They do want something different from the community pharmacy model or the high street pharmacy model, but receiving medication actually in the mail heightened that anxiety. So, and I can understand that because,
because in case it got lost or in case something happened in transit, or
because as soon as it leaves your pharmacy and gets picked up by a courier, you are reliant on that courier from taking it to ADB. Now, 99.9% of the time it's relatively reliable, but if an Amazon order is late for a day and it's a pair of trainers, I'm probably going to be okay. My medication is late by a day, then obviously my anxiety levels are going to go through the roof, particularly if it's one of these acute medications where, it could be the matter of life and death for some patients.
And do you have any, I don't know if you can do this in a generalized way, but for acute conditions, how often do people need repeat prescriptions? What's the cycle like? Is it weekly, bi-weekly, monthly? Like what does that sort of look like?
For patients on a repeat cycle, it depends on the medication and the interaction with the GPs, but on average it's a 1 month or 2 month cycle. So COVID, for example, it's been more 2 month prescriptions being issued by GPs to try and kind of alleviate some of the pressure on the frontline services. But it tends to be anywhere between a month and 2 months. But again, it all depends on the types of medications and any sort of follow-up treatment you need. But I suppose the one thing though that Phlo looks at is going, okay, you can put it in the mail order, and for those repeat medications, it's relatively straightforward because it's the same days usually each month for your different cohorts of patients based on their dispensing cycle. But they still have that uncomfortable nature of, is this actually going to arrive at the time that I think it's going to arrive?
Yeah.
So that was really where Phlo kind of decided, well, actually, we can use great technology, we can use great design, but actually what patients really want is that same day model where they can actually order on a particular day, book a time slot which suits them, and track it like a delivery order all the way from our pharmacy to their door. And that's the whole purpose behind Phlo, is really our USP fundamentally is that if you're in a real-time delivery area of Phlo, you can sign up for both your repeat and your acute prescriptions for those one-off ailments that you might get over the course of your lifetime, and you'll get delivery within 4 hours. And actually, our delivery in London at the moment is about 2 hours.
Just because I mean, it sort of, when you say it like that, it just sounds kind of almost too good to be true, right? I mean, I know it is true, but so walk me through, or walk the listeners through, if they're not familiar with Phlo.
Sure.
So how does someone sign up to Phlo? How do they find Phlo? How do they use Phlo? Like what happens? How does someone get it?
Yeah, so it's like any pharmacy, whether it's a community pharmacy, bricks and mortar, or online pharmacy, you nominate Phlo Digital Pharmacy as your pharmacy of choice.
To your clinician or to the NHS?
You can do that either directly via your GP, or you can sign up to our web app on our website, www.wearephlo.com. Right. Click register now. It's a very simple process, takes less than 3 minutes. You give us your basic details, your name, your address, your date of birth, your GP, where you live, and in the background we're doing some identity checks on there. You nominate us as your pharmacy of choice. Okay. You give something called summary care record access, which every pharmacy needs in order to make sure that any medication you're given by the doctor is not going to have any reactions with any other medication you might be on.
Is it a way for them to, it's sort of like an agreement that they can share and have access to medical information about?
Yes, every pharmacy needs that. So we access systems like any other pharmacy. We access through the GP clinical records and through the NHS spine, which we need those nominations in order to go and do that.
Right.
And then as soon as we've done that and we've onboarded you as a patient, which is, say, takes less than 3 minutes, so it's a very, very simple process. At that point, as soon as your next prescription is due for a refill, if it's a repeat medication, or whether it's that one-off and the GP's giving you a prescription because you've got a chest infection or something like that, that prescription will automatically update on our application.
Right.
Or your account, or your Phlo account that you can access on any device. You then press that as a request. You request that gets authorized by the GP. As soon as it's authorized by the GP as a patient, you can then pick, if you live in London in our real-time delivery zone, you can pick a day and time that suits you. So
That's
now
cool.
it's
what a great service. Do you know what I mean? I mean, like, what an unbelievable service.
It's really simple.
So like well, I know that you're kind of biased, but so within somewhere like London, which is one of you call it a real-time delivery area. Is that that's what you say?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So what percentage of those deliveries are via real time? Is it all of them are via real time, or there's some that are on this sort of repeat cycle? Like, how popular is this real time delivery method amongst your customers in an area where it's available?
Yeah, so the way that it works, we're a distance selling pharmacy under NHS regulation. So we have to be able to deliver to any patient in England who wants to use our service. So
is that the rule?
That is the rule. So we have our real-time delivery zone in London, and we're going to expand that out in other cities across England this year. But we also offer a national mail order system. So depending on your delivery address that you want, you can choose your type of service that you would like. So you can, for example, during lockdown, we had a lot of London patients who used our same-day delivery service, but then maybe go back to their parents in Yorkshire but continue to receive their medication. So it's that patient choice, giving them the option of what they want to do. But the real-time delivery part in London, that's our preferred option that patients have. So anybody who lives within our delivery zone will pick that option because they can pick a time slot which suits them. So the next time slot is probably from 2 till 6. You might not be busy. You might be busy 2 till 6. So you might pick 6 till 10, or you might pick Thursday morning 9 till 1, depending on your kind of convenience and how quickly you want it. So our patients get it there and then, and other patients will book a time slot further in the week, but the delivery mechanism is the same. It's the courier driver is coming from our pharmacy, tracked all the way to the patient's front door.
Right. So it's still the same delivery method, but you can actually pick and choose when you want it. So let me just get, so if you've got a delivery slot, sorry to go into the details,
No,
but
no, it's good,
I love trying to actually understand how this stuff works. And also I think it's helpful that to listeners to really understand the details of it. So if I go to doctors in London and my appointment's at 12 and I'm seen and the doctor prescribes me some medication. The next delivery slot for me in London that day, all things being equal, would be between 2 and 6 on the same day. Is that sort of how that might work, or is it?
So it depends on the type of medication. So if you're going in for that acute one, so you don't usually get medication and it's a one-off thing, you can say to your GP, if you're not already registered with Phlo, you can say, can you please send this prescription to Phlo? Right. And that will be authorized as a prescription from the GP. Instantaneously, then you will be given the next available time slot for you to book it. So you might decide to book it then. And it could be as if you get the prescription offered to you at say midday, it could be 12:30 as your 12:30 till 4 or whatever to the next delivery slot. So it all depends on, because it's all done through the NHS Spine and the electronic prescription service. As long as we have a valid authorized prescription from whether it's a GP or another clinical provider, then we can then and assuming we have the stock, we can turn that around very, very quickly. So every time to 2 hours.
That's phenomenal. So, you mentioned that to be a distance, so are all digital pharmacies sort of referred to as distance selling pharmacies in official language?
In official NHS speak, you're a
NHS, vocabulary, you're a distance selling pharmacy. And so do all distance selling pharmacies as part of the gig have to be able to deliver to anywhere in the UK?
Anywhere in England, so you're registered per region within the UK. So we're an NHS England pharmacy. So in theory, if an NHS patient would like, say they live in rural Cornwall and they want to use the Phlo service, obviously we don't offer the same day service in Cornwall yet, but what we do offer is a national mail order service. So we'll use a range of different providers from the Royal Mail to DPD and others. So it's a mixture of choices. And that's the rules and regulations around it, and that works for a lot of patients, because I think for me it's about patient choice. Some patients are okay with getting it in the mail and they don't mind that service works for them and they're okay with that. Others prefer the real-time delivery service. So
I think where it's available, you're probably going to take the real-time delivery service.
That's our hunch, and those who live in the London, they will 95% of them will always pick the same day service because they can control it more, and then they've got more trackability than you would if it goes through the more traditional national courier providers.
Oh, and another random question: if you get a prescription delivered through the mail order, and no one's there, does it go to the post office and you've got to go get it, or what happens? Because that's fairly sensitive. It's quite sensitive.
And that is the real challenge around medication. So what we do with our couriers is that if the patient's not in to get the medication, for various kind of certain drugs, that will have to be taken back and kept in a controlled environment. But you have to go and collect it. So that becomes a real challenge. But what we have done is we try and offset that by providing those live notifications to patients so that they really know when it's going to come in, so that they can do that in a way that suits them. But there is some challenges around that type of service, and that's why we think that ultimately the real service here is going to be that same day delivery offering where you can get it in 2 to 4 hours any time of the week. Because ultimately for us, we want to go Monday to Sunday 24/7 dispensing. If you're working on the back shift, you can still medication. It doesn't really matter about some archaic 9 to 5 opening hours. It's about convenience and offering the patient the choice as to what type of service they want to access their medication.
Yeah, I agree. And what's been the reaction from there were, prior to Phlo, there have been digital pharmacies. Correct. So there's that group of people. Then there's also the group of 15,000 or 16,000 individual independent pharmacies, plus all of the small multiples and the large multiples by Boots. So what has the general reaction been across the board from those different sort of groups? Obviously, I'm assuming consumers love it. One would assume that that's a big tick. But what has been the reaction from more entrenched providers who, are in this space already?
I think ultimately, at the end of the day, all of whether you're whether you're Phlo or whether you're working on a high street pharmacy or you're one of the existing online pharmacy providers, I think everybody's united with the fact that we're here to give patient choice and give them great care. And I think
Hope so.
Well, that's the fundamentals of a pharmacy. If that's not what's driving your business, then you shouldn't be in the health tech industry, because you can have great tech and you can have great design, but if you forget that at the end of the day you're dealing with people's health, that is the most important thing. Yeah. And I think during COVID, the past year, I think everybody who's working in the healthcare sector, whether it's pharmacies or online pharmacies, primary, secondary care, have done an incredible job in trying to do their small part in trying to fight back against the impacts of COVID. So I think there's been a kind of a unanimous kind of call to arms across the sector. In terms of what the other companies think about, we don't really spend too much time worrying about that. We're worried about what we need to do and how we execute on our ideas and our vision for Phlo. And the most important thing for us is to make sure that anybody who uses Phlo as a patient has the best possible service that we can offer them, whether that's real-time delivery, mail order, whether it's the interaction with our customer service team or our remote pharmacy team who deal with clinical issues and concerns that patients might have. The best thing for us is helping people. Our youngest patient is 5, our oldest patient is 86 now.
Well, that's great.
It's a massive kind of range of people who use the platform, and seeing our Trustpilot reviews when people come in and say, I had to self-isolate and Phlo was a lifeline.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things that get you through it. So really for Phlo, what we're focused on is making sure we deliver amazing patient care, and then what other people think, well, they can think about it. As long as our patients are happy, that's all that matters to us.
Good. Well, that is a very noble sentiment. And so on the topic of COVID, you sort of hinted at it there, and you hinted at it at the beginning. There obviously was like a step change difference in many businesses, but predominantly, health tech businesses, healthcare businesses. So there was like a business that was happening before COVID, and then there was kind of like a business that happened after COVID or whilst COVID was going on. What was that transition like for you? Was there a moment, I know we're not allowed to swear, but was there a moment of like a, oh my goodness moment?
Yeah.
I don't know what that reaction was, but talk us through it.
It's kind of, because we're still in the midst of it and we're still kind of fighting in the trenches, it's haven't really had time to reflect on it as much. I think if I ever get to the point where I write any sort of article about my career with Phlo, I think this will have this past year will have a good few chapters dedicated to it. Yeah. You know what, we the aim of Phlo when we first started was about convenience, patient choice, and providing a service that reflected the way we thought the wider consumer society and sector of demands was going. So we didn't build Phlo because we thought there'd be a global pandemic and people would want, on-demand delivery of medication. But as a general trend, there was this trend to convenience, to choice, to rapid delivery. Targeted companies like Amazon have really progressed that, but it's happening across all sectors. On-demand TV, Netflix, whatever it might be, people want it now. They don't want to wait for anything anymore. And that's a change that's happened across the sector. So that was the first idea. And we're going, well, actually, we can provide a really patient-first, slick, well-designed, great engineered with great patient care. We can provide Phlo. Now, we launched late 2019, soft launch. Got into January, started getting a little bit of traction, getting a few patients on board, because it's really hard when you first start. It's still hard for us now because, no pun intended, no one really knows us from Adam. We're still, at the general grand scheme of things, we are still a very early stage company, but you have to build that trust. And it's not like you're buying a pair of trainers from us. We are dealing with people's healthcare. So people have to be really, really rest assured that if they do decide to go with you, that you're going to deliver on everything that you say you're going to do. And we get into January, things are going well. We're working on it. We've got loads of really exciting plans. Getting to February, I was over in Italy for the Six Nations game just before kind of lockdown started kicking off, and I was like, this isn't good, because we've kind of been in this sort of like, I think, state of denial in the UK that it wasn't going to come over. I came back and I was like, look, I remember talking to the team going, I think, we might have to get prepared for this COVID virus, because I think it could have a big impact on how we operate. And then it happened, boom, overnight. We're all remote. Credit to the pharmacy team. I have to give a special mention to them. Throughout the whole time during the pandemic, they've been working in our pharmacy in East London. Complete commitment to making sure that our patients get their medication and have some level of control in a rather uncertain time. And fair play to them, because without them, it doesn't matter about how nice our app is or how good the website is or how good the concept that the Dean and I have for what the business could be. If you don't deal with the most important thing, which is the patient care, and reliable, then it doesn't matter what else you do. And credit to them and our tech team as well for putting together. We were always set up for remote working. Startups tend to be a little bit more agile than maybe traditional corporate, so that wasn't an issue. But we then created systems where we could actually have a red and blue team in and out of the pharmacy. So there was always remote pharmacy support to the pharmacists that were actually in the actual pharmacy unit itself. So that helped too, because it meant that we could deploy other pharmacists to progress orders, make sure that patients were registered properly, and allow the pharmacists in the actual unit to just focus solely on getting the medication out of the door. So it's a game changer for us. I think, we always saw Phlo as a generational business, in the sense that, if you get patients maybe in their sort of mid-20s to early 30s, they're the type of people that are more open to early adoption of new technology and new ways of accessing their healthcare. You then provide them an excellent service and meet the needs of what they want and what they need out of a pharmacy provider. You could then have them for 30, 40, 50 plus years as a in theory. If you do the service bit right and you're delivering everything they need you to, then you should have that patient for a long time.
And why would they switch? I mean,
why would they switch?
If the cost of staying with one provider are low/zero, why would they?
And if you do a good service, it in theory is a very sticky industry, because you don't really want to change it, because you're used to the way that works.
Sure.
And that was always going to take us time. And you also had to, when you're the first of something in any sector launching a business, it can always sometimes be the hardest, because you've got to do all the legwork and explaining to people.
You've got to convince a lot of naysayers that will tell you it's not going to work. We've done that. We've had to do that as well.
We like doing it, but the patient feedback is everything that matters to us. But what's interesting is that sometimes, we know when patient tries our business once or tries the service once, they don't tend to go back and move anywhere else, because it's so convenient. So, but what COVID did was, and I think it did this across society, is that it was a macro event that accelerated the adoption of tech in every area of our life. It was already happening.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
COVID made it almost imperative that probably everybody listening to this show today, and I'm sure you as well, Steve, are probably doing new things with technology that you probably didn't do back in early 2020 before the pandemic, or if it's accelerated these new ways of doing things. So that event has made people more open to looking at different ways of how to access their healthcare. And that the service for us has been, the right place at the right time for a lot of our patients. But we're proud that we're able to play our small role with all the pharmacists, because it's not just online pharmacies that have stepped up during the pandemic. It's community pharmacists, it's GPs, it's nurses. The whole sector has really stepped up to the plate.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And just to go back to your point around the generational issue, I know that you've actually embedded Phlo within certain telemedicine providers. So talk us through that, because that's kind of I think that's a very clever, smart thing to do, because it actually provides more of a seamless experience. So someone can now see a doctor online and then be prescribed via Phlo and have it delivered to their house. So it's really end to end. Whereas before, one of the issues that I kind of always had with telehealth or telemedicine was that you could have the interaction, the consultation, but then what? It kind of became a bit clunky. What became kind of clunky afterwards. So what a Phlo doing?
That's exactly what we thought about it. It was a bit of a light bulb moment, sort of 2019, where we realized the way that we were building. So we've heavily invested in our pharmacy infrastructure and our pharmacy platform that we use to connect effectively everything from NHS systems to the patient-facing apps to our ordering systems for medication. It's a very sophisticated piece of tech, and our technology team have done a wonderful job working with our pharmacy team to build this from scratch. But what we realized from the beginning when we were building this was that actually we were building it in such a way that other healthcare providers, whether it's telemedicine or more maybe traditional bricks and mortar healthcare providers that want to offer remote consultations
Right.
could actually plug into our pharmacy infrastructure and offer that to their patients. So you're absolutely right. One of the big challenges with telemedicine is, particularly if you're in the private space, not so much in the NHS because you've got the electronic prescription service, but even then that can have its challenges. But if you're more in the private space, you have your consultation, and at the end of the consultation, they're like, right, Steve, where do you want to get your prescription sent to? And you might have a community pharmacy on your high street or a Boots or whatever it might be, and you'll say, oh, can you send it to this address? They might be able to send it electronically, but 9 times out of 10, they probably can't. So then they have to fax it. You then have to go to that pharmacy because it's private. You don't know the cost of that medication. You don't know whether they have it in stock. You're waiting in a queue.
If they've got the fax, because no one, the use of fax is probably not increasing. I'd say it's
no, I mean, you would
probably decreasing.
Healthcare system, I think that's the last bastion of it. But it's not a great patient experience, and
well, no, it's not seamless. It's not frictionless.
No.
Sort of like, I've had a good consultation. The doctor's diagnosed me with something. They've told me what the solution is, and it's really painful for me to get the solution.
Yeah.
How do I do that?
Exactly. So that's where we came up with this. Well, we could actually offer this sort of powered by Phlo service, where actually our infrastructure could be, directly integrated with other healthcare providers. Some completely, some in a more kind of sort of remote way, where you're doing sort of one-page checkouts and things. So it's slightly different depending on the healthcare provider. But we provide this very exact same service to Babylon Health. And
I was going to say, you said Babylon in our pre-production meeting, so they use you guys for this service.
Yeah, they use it for the service, and it gives them peace of mind as well, because it gives them the ability to track every single prescription that they've been dispensed by their team.
Right.
They don't have to spend time chasing pharmacists and busy pharmacies to dispense an order which they might not have been expecting. Sure. We then make sure we've got the typical types of medications that Babylon healthcare providers might prescribe to their patients.
Yeah.
And that allows us really just to give that seamless digital experience. And it goes back to choice. The patient can still choose to go and pick up at the pharmacy.
Yep.
But if you don't want to do that, you can literally, at the switch of a button, effectively, as soon as you've had your Babylon consultation and you say, right, I want it delivered, you click on that, you'll get what the price of the medication is, what your delivery options are based on your delivery address. You can then edit that delivery address if you want to change it to get maybe you're just outside the delivery zone with one address, but you're inside the delivery zone with another address. And that choice there to the patient, and then they get the same live real-time tracking all the way from us getting the prescription to where it's being dispensed to picking it up. And then if it's the same day offering, as soon as that medication is picked up by our courier driver, the screen flips, and like a Deliveroo, you can track that bicycle or scooter or car all the way to your front door within seconds. And you can do that all on your couch, and you don't need to.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's like I said, it's a fantastic service, and we talked about before in our pre-production meeting that you're not trying to remove choice. It's the exact opposite. In fact, you're trying to just offer patients more choice about how they get their healthcare delivered. So how do you feel, or so I know we've also talked about the integration, not technical integration, but more like how community pharmacies exist alongside digital pharmacy solutions like yours, and actually how the provision of different types of service are potentially going to be shifting. They were already shifting, but potentially COVID might have accelerated them. So I know that you and I talked about this, but what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's an opportunity here for a hybrid system between, what online pharmacies can do and what community pharmacy can do in terms of offering a service. And I think, it's health tech. So at the end of the day, everything that we do, whether we're a bricks and mortar pharmacy or an online pharmacy, should be what's best for the patient experience and the patient health. And my view is, and I think the sector is the wider pharmacy sector, not just the difference between online and community, just the wider pharmacy sector is going through a lot of change. That's through funding decisions made at central government, to the way NHS is set up, to the demands and the needs of our new patient bases and growing patient and elderly patient base across the UK. if you look at the long-term plan that was released back in 2019, it seems to me that there's more of a suggestion here that actually community pharmacies in the future, and I think this is probably where it'll end up, is that your traditional high street and community pharmacy will be more service orientated. So providing that, frontline clinical care to patients, because there's always going to be a need in a healthcare system for in-person face-to-face consultation.
Yeah.
We're never going to take that away, but it's about getting the right balance between what needs to be done in person and what can be digitally enabled. And you need a hybrid of those two. It can't be one or the other. I think both have to work together. So my vision, I think the way that it looks like the NHS plan, but I also think the impact of COVID will be that community pharmacies will do more clinical care. So being almost a triage service for
or overflow for primary care.
Blood tests, looking at asthma, doing things that can alleviate some pressure on GP surgeries to work through must be an incredible backlog of things that need to get done now, because
there is a massive backlog of all kinds of extremely serious conditions. And
use the skills of pharmacists, because these are trained clinicians where
they're extremely well qualified.
They can do an incredible job. And then what you do then is the online pharmacies then provide the dispensing service of pharmacy care to wider geographical areas. So what you end up is you have maybe one or two pharmacies doing a wider geographical area rather than multiple pharmacies covering off smaller areas. Allow those pharmacists to focus on service provision and actually frontline clinical patient care, which an online pharmacy could never do.
No.
The only way that works, though, is funding. So, the NHS funding would have to change to make that.
Or they work out or improve their ability to sell it privately, sell those services privately, which is a separate kettle of fish. But
as long as if you've got the NHS service, you can then make that available to. So I think they both kind of work hand in hand. But for me, it's about at Phlo, first and foremost, it's all about that great patient care. And then it's about offering that patient choice. And, there'll always be patients who will want to go to a pharmacy for various reasons. And there'll always be patients who are looking for a Phlo type of service. What's been interesting to us is that the adoption of Phlo, we always thought it as, kind of that 18-year-old to 35-year-old early adopters.
Yeah.
The age range is stupendous, 86 to 5. So you're pretty much covering the entire demographic here, right? Our average patient is over 40, over 45. So, and those types of patients, if you think about it, they have spent the majority of their adult life living in a digitally enabled world.
Yeah.
The 18-year-olds now were born, 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
They have only ever known a technical world. So for me, it's about choice and providing a service that is convenient and reliable to the patients. And I think that's what Phlo does very well at the moment.
That makes sense. I think where we've thought about this from the PocDoc perspective is certainly in alignment with the requirement now. It was happening before. So when you mentioned the long-term plan, the NHS periodically publishes papers. The latest one was called the NHS long-term plan, which sets out the future of the NHS across various different ways, which gets referenced from time to time in the media. And one of them is around this more access to remote care. So care treatment taking place away from a clinical setting or from a primary care GP clinical setting. So whether it's in the community, whether it's in a pharmacy, wherever it happens to be, and that's where we see the value of our technology in being able to facilitate blood testing, anywhere, anytime. And I think that has to happen face to face, obviously, but there isn't necessarily a need for that to happen in a GP surgery. And given resources, but I think both I don't know what you think, but from the demand side and the supply side at the moment, there's a constraint on being able to have services facilitated in a GP surgery. So people don't necessarily want to go in as much.
Yeah.
And there isn't as much capacity for those people to go in. So there needs to be a better way to triage people through that system. But there are still, people that have diagnosed cardiovascular disease, diagnosed type 2 diabetes, they need regular blood testing of certain things, it has to happen.
And it helps you to identify potential ailments before they...
Yeah. Early detection.
The easier you make it to do for earlier detection, the cost-saving benefits from a society point of view, from the NHS, the health of the nation, is going to benefit from that. And I think you're absolutely right. It's about, okay, this was the service that we've had for the past 50 years. what do we now need to do, and when can we use tech to make things easier?
Yeah.
When do we need that in-person, face-to-face contact? And let's create a hybrid system that is ultimately all about making sure the patient gets the best possible care.
Yeah, I think it's that. So let's use everyone's skills to the best of their abilities, right?
Yeah.
Which is, there are these, like you and others are doing a fantastic job in being able to distribute prescriptions to someone's door. That doesn't necessarily have to happen in a face-to-face capacity. Although if you want it to, then you can still do that if that's your choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, for me, it's all about that choice element.
Okay. And so what's sort of next over the next 12 to 18 months for Phlo?
I think, this year is, we learned a lot. I mean, the first thing you can always do is just get your product in front of your patients and actually get real people to use it, because you discover a lot of things that you may have assumed are not actually the case. So we've had a lot of learning over the past year. So we're rapidly, improving the features and the user journey based on experience and feedback that we've had over the past year. We're about to launch some native apps in the Android and Apple Store, which will.
Do you not have apps at the moment, or have you gone? You've done
web app. So it's a web app at the moment, so you can use that to log on via the website, but it's mobile, tablet friendly, etc. Right. So that's one thing that it's quite a minor thing, but it allows people to use it on, again, going back to that choice thing, it allows them to use it on any format that they want to see. Right. We then want to expand out in other major cities. So our next city will be Birmingham, and then we're moving on to other cities around England later on this year. Okay. Continue to scale the team. Look back to that infrastructure piece that we were talking about. We've got some really interesting features of that I think are going to be a game changer for pharmacy as a service in the future, and we'll be looking to hopefully launch that at some point this year.
Are they all secret squirrel, or can you tell us any of them?
It's more of a it's probably more of a formulation of what we've already done, and make that a little bit more of an actual official offering to the marketplace. But very confident that what we're going to be offering will be a very powerful feature for any health tech company looking to provide that end-to-end digital experience from consultation through to pharmacy, and they'll be able to have various ways of plugging in with our systems, which will be quite interesting, I think.
Excellent. Now I'm going to ask this because I know we spoke about this before, because you're in London, you're going to do Birmingham, and then other places, I'm assuming, within England. So what are the challenges that you've faced in launching in Scotland? Is there a different system in place as far as pharmacies are concerned?
Yeah,
Scottish business.
Well, the NHS is a very interesting beast generally, right?
Yeah.
There is no UK NHS, right?
No, there is not.
It's all devolved, right? And it has been even before the devolved administrations. The Scottish NHS was always very different from the English NHS and Welsh and Northern Ireland, etc. So every NHS has their own decisions that they want to make regarding where they're going to invest their money and how they're going to deploy, tech solutions. The current state of play in the UK, in Scotland at the moment, is that they don't have the full electronic prescription service that is required for a company like Phlo to operate. So we need that full electronic prescription service where a GP can create a prescription on your file, and it automatically pings the NHS spine, which then pings our database that allows us to deliver you.
Steve. So the back end system effectively doesn't exist in Scotland yet for you to do.
And I know they're talking about it and they're looking at it. So of course we would like to see that, but it's the same in Wales and Northern Ireland. I'm not a huge expert in it, but they also have limitations around how you can integrate with the service. So we'd like to work with in all regions of the UK if possible. Yeah. It was sad that we couldn't offer patients in Wales and in Northern Ireland and in Scotland during the pandemic this service that could have really helped people.
Because it helped thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah. And we would love to have done that in other areas of the UK.
And is it a technical obstacle or financial obstacle? Because it would require a lot of investment to develop that system, and it doesn't exist. Or what do you?
It doesn't exist. I think it's a case of whether they want to put the upfront investment to roll that out across the country, and I think. I don't know the exact ins and outs of rolling out that type of service, but Scotland does have a form of the electronic prescription service. It's just not the full version that they have in England. So I would imagine there would be some cost around it. I suppose it's all like anything in the NHS, it's that cost benefit analysis. So yeah, cost, but is there a better benefit to have this service for the wider healthcare? Obviously, as someone who works in online pharmacy, I would say yes, there is. But again, it goes back to that choice piece, and I think that if we could operate in these other regions, then we would. But at the moment, we're focusing in on England.
That makes sense. And so, like the NHS often likes to think about things in terms of cost savings or better outcomes. How does a digital pharmacy or a pharmacy service, digital pharmacy, distance selling pharmacy, how does that help either reduce costs to the NHS or improve the outcomes? If you had to express it in those things, I completely understand. There's no question it's a better patient experience.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I think the fact, though, that it is a better patient experience has those better outcomes to the NHS, because if you're on a prescription that maybe makes your life easier, but isn't certainly to like save your life. So it could be you have a skin cream for acne, or there's something it's kind of low level but needs regular treatment. But if you don't get that regular treatment, could escalate very quickly.
Right.
Online pharmacy and what Phlo does by making it so convenient, so easy to use, means that your adherence levels to the prescription process means that you are going to have a better, healthier individual. So make it easier. We also have reminders in apps, so people say, look, Steve, your order's due in 10 days, 7 days, 2 days, to make sure that you don't miss a dose, make it easy for you to get that dose, and then make it easy for you to follow the prescription that's been offered by the doctor. But also as well, adherence is a big cost to the medication, because if people don't adhere to their prescriptions or they don't take the medication in the way they should, then it can have real significant impact on the overall cost for the NHS. It also increases people's resilience towards certain antibiotics because they didn't take that properly, so they need to go for a different course this time, etc. So having good adherence has real consequences in the wider NHS, the health of the wider NHS and society.
That makes sense. So look, on that note, Adam, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on. Adam Hunter from Phlo. So it's PHLO, and we are phlo.com. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the website. You can sign up today, less than 3 minutes.
I would recommend anyone to go and have a look at it, particularly if you're in London, because it's a fantastic service. So Adam, thank you very much. And thank you very much to everyone for listening. And we'll do another show next week.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Steve.
Cheers.